Hello, welcome to From the Depths. My name is Dr. Kamikaze, and this episode I'm going to be teaching you about the engines as of... I don't even know what version we're playing. It's the one with the flamethrowers in it. But I have been playing this game since 2020. And over that time, I've used a lot of engines, a lot of different combinations of engines, and overall, just which ones I prefer. And I'm hoping this episode will help you guys, especially newer players, understand how each engine works, what the pros and cons are, and other things like how much power, the limitations, all that stuff. So, first things first, one of the things we're going to start, well, let's introduce us to this platform here. So this platform is just a simple platform with, what is it, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 ion thrusters. The reason I used ion thrusters is because they each have a power use of 540 at maximum power. So in total, it's about 7,560 power use a second, I think it is. So this is a good benchmark on how not only efficient engines are, but also how much power they can produce. For example, right now we've got in the bottom right a total of 15,984 engine power to use. Now that is coming from this cube over here, this petrol engine cube. I will tell you guys about this, but for now we'll just shut it down. There you go. So now we have 0 power. Let's start with probably the simplest engine, first of all, the electric engine. Now, electric engines are good as a starter because you don't need a whole lot for them. You just need an electric engine and a battery. Each battery by itself gives you 90 power. Times that by 4, 360. Nice and easy. If you need more engine power, well, just add more batteries. Now, this is fine to start off with, because with this small space here, a 5x3 section, with this small section, we've got 3,960 power. There's only one issue with that. As we have explained before, we are using 7,500 engine power. So if I turned all of these on to max, we wouldn't have enough engine power to fully utilize them. Another problem with batteries and electric engines is as the power is consumed, the amount of power available drops. So if we go 0, spread to neighbor, and then just put one engine, you can see that despite the fact that we have more than enough engine power, we are still dropping. And that's because of the battery, just how the electric energy works. Now, in terms of power output, these are the most efficient because they are a 1-to-1. A 1-to-1 perfect swap. On the other, now, in order to get back engine power from these, or battery charge, you can use one of three options. You can either, one, use RTGs, and with these RTGs, each 2 meter one will give a energy creation of, as you can see, 30 per second. We have 60, and then the 3x3 gives 405 a second. So as you add more RTGs, the more power it generates for your craft, and basically the more distance you can go. So all in all, batteries, pretty good. The second ways you can, other ways you can get more power is by a petrol engine, which is that one over there, and I can remember the keys, and steam engines. So with steam engines, you can get a large generator, and that produces electrical power for your craft here. I will get into steam later. For those of you new, this might seem absolutely bonkers, but steam engines are probably easier to wrap your head around over fuel engines. Like that cube that I've built over there is the most effective way I've found to use them. There are, like, for example, turbochargers. That doesn't use turbochargers, that uses superchargers because they're more efficient. But yeah, overall, yeah. So all in all, battery engines are the most efficient way of making power. Downsides: to completely make a battery powered system work well, you need a large amount of it. And I mean a huge amount. So if I went ahead and built a battery powered thing, so there's 3, yeah. So if I went and built an electric battery, an electric motor, we would find that although it does create more engine power, it does over time as you use it decrease the amount of engine power. So you would still have to build a whole bunch of RTGs, which comes at a greater cost and just takes up more room than a standard petrol engine. But it's still a very good engine, because it means we can do this and the battery just can keep going. However, there's a problem with this. First of all, this is not very cheap. Each 3x3 battery section we just used, so what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 4 is 24. So 790 times 24. We basically just built this at a cost of almost 19,000 resources. This fuel engine here, yeah, nowhere near that price. So batteries are very expensive as a first off. In order to use them effectively, you have to have a whole bunch of RTGs, which come at its own cost, like 750 per 4 meter, 5,000 per 3x3. So they are it's not exactly something you want to use as a first off the bat, especially early game. Late game, when you have heaps of resources available, it's not so much of an issue. I have built several crafts that only use batteries, like for example, let's see, the what? What? I'm trying to think. No, the Odin, I think the Odin is the... Oh, and even then, it uses steam power. So, yeah, this boat, when I first made it, early game, I could only build one of these. Only build one of these, and it's just
Receiving.
way too expensive. Overall, batteries, very good, and they are absolutely necessary if you're wanting to build anything with, like lasers. You need to have batteries. Particle cannons, batteries. Plasma. These are kind of new to me, but again, I know that they need battery power, I think. Generates plasma charges. Energy used, yeah. So they take energy to do that. Also, defense systems. Now, defense systems are a bit awkward because they use engine power rather than electric power. But if you have a craft that is all battery, it's not going to be a good time for you. So yeah. Our second engine type, which you can see is that abomination over there. So this craft right here, petrol engine. Now, to make petrol engines, you only really need a couple things. You need a generator, fuel engine generator, crankshaft, cylinder. And that's it. And it's basic fundamental. Oh, and a radiator. Actually, no. You don't even need the radiator. At its fundamental, you really only need that. I mean, it's not going to be very powerful. You'll find that it will immediately bloody burn up. Yeah, at its fundamentals, you only need 3 things to make them work. Now, in order to make them work efficiently, you need a lot more. So one of my favorite designs, that right there, is one of these. Don't do that. It's one of these. So you get your engine, you get your crankshaft. You build 4 of these, you get a carburetor. So carburetors, you need to have in order to attach superchargers to. Superchargers and turbochargers. They are a must. Turbochargers, I'm not entirely sure how they work. I've tried to get them to work countless times, but it says connect to carburetor, it's connected to carburetor. Like that. Oh, there we go. Increasing efficiency. So that's how that works right there. Oh, there we go. 94 degrees Celsius is its maximum heat. But one of my favorite designs is just a simple carbureted engine. Nope. Simple carbureted engine with superchargers. 3 for each cylinder. Now, of course, the more parts you add to an engine, the hotter it gets. So injectors. Injectors improve efficiency overall. More alternative to carburetors and force induction. I'm not entirely sure. Like, yeah, you can replace carburetors if you're trying to make a compact engine, but overall, you might as well just use both. So you have on each cylinder, if you look here, you have 2 injectors, 1 carburetor, and 3 superchargers. So the injectors have 2 prongs, as you can see, it's a L shape. So it connects to this cylinder and this cylinder. That side connects to both cylinders, so that gets 2, this gets 2, that gets 2, that gets 2, and then 3 superchargers per cylinder. Now, the final thing you need to really make this work are radiators. Heat is the #1 enemy to all petrol engines. If it's too hot, it's just not going to work very well. In fact, as you can see, it just completely dies. Large radiators obviously contribute much more to engine cooling. And you want a cool engine because cool engines do a lot of things for you. They, first of all, make sure that your engine doesn't just die immediately. They also ensure that your engine is working efficiently. So right now, as you can see, our current output is 13% RPM. We have a power output of 540 and a material use of 0.96 per second and 559.9 power material. Now, as we continue to add, and we're holding at 18.2 degrees Celsius. Now, as we add more radiators, you'll see that this temperature goes down. I'm not sure if the power will increase, but the power per material will increase. So what are we at? We are at 559.9 per cylinder. So we'll add a couple more. And a couple more radiators. And as you can see, 573 power per material, and we've dropped about 5 degrees Celsius. And as you make the engine cooler and cooler, it will make more and more power, which is very, very nice. So I'll just continue building out. Now, is this kind of an ugly looking engine? Yes, it's very cubish. But it's unfortunately the price you pay for very good engines. Now, these are very large. But they can be made really fuel efficiently. So right now we've got 7.9 degrees Celsius, and we have a power per material of almost 600 per cylinder. We have 4 cylinders, so that makes quite a bit of power. Now down here you can see stable power output. This basically just means of how much power the engine can produce at certain percentages of its RPM, which you can see here. Now, on these graphs, you can see that you have your stable power, and then you have your stable power per material. This stable power per material, this green line, basically just means how efficiently the engine is running. And stable power is just how much power the engine is making at that time. Over here, you can see it's an intersection point between stable power and power per material. Basically, this is the most efficient, stable power output you can get out of the engine. And if you go over that, you'll use more material to make more power, which is fine, but it means that you're not really being efficient. This grey line here is your current RPM, and then this red line here is your maximum RPM. So we can actually move the maximum RPM a bit. So if you want your maximum RPM to be, I don't know, 8%, 80%, then this is where the engine will stop and it will not accelerate any further. So if we moved our engine RPM, like, so what, we're running at about 13% RPM? Yeah, about that. So if we move it to like 8, the engine is capable of going further, but it's not going to. Now, as we increase engine load, we can see the engine increase in RPM, and we can see the power drop. Good thing with petrol engines, and all other engines really, is that the power doesn't go down all the time, just the material use increases. So, petrol engines and steam engines will work at pretty much 100% power output until they've got absolutely nothing left. And as you can see, as we increase engine load, the temperature of the engine increases. That's basically because the engine's spinning faster, obviously generating more heat, and of course our power per material has gone down to 490, but our power output has increased to 810 per cylinder. And we're running at about 89.2% RPM, which, yeah, it checks out. Thereabouts. Yeah, 89. And then, yeah, so this stable power output basically graphs out how much power your engine should make at 100% power. So this here should roughly equate to your engine availability. So 3,570 engine power available, 3,545. It's not great. It's not exactly, but it's thereabouts. And then, of course, as you go down percentages in RPM, the amount of power available will reduce. Power per material, pretty obvious. But the faster the engine spins, the more fuel it uses. Like 25% RPM basically just means you're the most efficient. Below that, you're even more efficient. And then like higher means at 100% RPM, you are generating 479 power per material. Now, power per volume, I'm not entirely sure what that is. And then the cost and volume, including materials burned in X minutes. Basically, in 3 minutes, we are generating 1.2 power per material. Power volume is 23.7. The cost is 2,907 material burned. So this is how much material is being burned over the course of 3 minutes. And then total volume occupied by engine parts and materials burned over X minutes. Not entirely sure what that means. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what power per volume means. I only really look at these sections here. So you have 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and 60 minutes. So over the course of 1 hour of running, that's 1 hour real time, we are going to be using, with this current engine setup, 28,215 material, which is actually quite efficient, all things considering. Now, of course, you can add more than just 4 cylinders to generate more power, like what I've done with the cube over there. So I'll just remove all of this. Nice and easy. So all we need to do is just add that back and then add the radiators. So this engine produces a total of 15,984 if we look in the thing. It's round about there. Now this is a 16-cylinder engine. All it is the other engine we built, but just upscaled. The nice thing with this kind of engine design here is that you can always make it longer. And with petrol engines, you can really only go longer. Adapters allow you to place the cylinders and all that, well, the cylinder anyway, away from the crankshaft. I'm not entirely sure why you would want to do it, because it doesn't really give you any advantage, really. But yeah, exhaust pipes. Now, exhaust pipes help reduce engine heat by basically venting the exhaust gases away. I found that unless you're going for an aesthetic build, or if you're trying to use a turbocharger, exhaust pipes are pretty much useless. Like, again, they're only really for aesthetics. Or if your engines, or if the ships you're building are too small, that you can't really afford space for all of this stuff here, then you can sacrifice a couple superchargers to make exhaust pipes run out of the vehicle. They do have to run out of the vehicle, otherwise it just doesn't work, or it works at 50% efficiency. But overall, these are kind of fucking useless. Most of the ships that I build, this type of engine is big enough, and if I am running low on space, I can basically just compress it down and just have it as a bloody, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, basically as a 7x7 block that just sits in the hull somewhere. But yeah, but with the 16-cylinder variant, here you can see we make a lot more power. Yes, we do burn a lot more material, but that's just the cost of having more engine power available. And being fair, we are using quite a lot of energy per minute. Again, that's, what, 15,000? Or 7,000? 7,500. And it's only using how much material? 509 power per material. It's pretty fucking good, if I'm gonna be honest. Only issue with this is that you need a constant supply of petrol. Early game, it might seem good, but you'll find early game's always the hardest, because you don't have a lot of materials, you don't have a lot of things, so it's really building something that will work pretty well. So yeah, so that's petrol engines. The third type of engine that we have, steam engines. Now steam engines are a bit of a doozy. They're a bit funky, if you will. So you have three types of steam engines you can make: small, medium, and large. So small is a simple 1x1, like that. So you have your steam engine, small gearbox. So for steam engines, you really only need a couple things. So, well, you need a lot of things really, but we'll just go with this. So you need a small gearbox. This is your heart, and then you have your crankshaft, small crankshaft, and then your small 2x2 meter piston, if it was pointed the right way. So that's all you need for the actual engine part of it. However, you need more parts to this. You need boilers. Boilers with... Stop delaying that. So you need boilers to make steam, and you need piping. So basically, you just go like this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, so you have your boilers, steam pipes, I mean, and then boilers. And then, just like that, you have engine power. Now, so these engines work on system pressure. If you have too much pressure, then the engine won't really work. So for example, if I put a steam vent here, and then had a vent pressure above 10, you'd see that the engine just can't force the air out. The engine slows down, can't move. Turn it to half, and like that, you've got a bit of power. Now, you want a little bit of output pressure. A little bit of output pressure, as that will increase the amount of power output, I think, anyway. Does it? Steam to output, kinetic loss. Yeah. And of course to make... And with this simple setup, we are already making 1800 RPM. Oh. They're already making 1800 RPM, which is pretty good. And then same thing with petrol engines. If you want more power, you just add more pistons. These engines with this setup, you can have a piston coming out everywhere, basically. All four sides can hold a piston. Of course, if you didn't build it on the floor. Now, the issue with steam, if any part of the system breaks, you have no power. So that means if you get shot, or there's a breach somewhere, the whole entire system just doesn't work. So this only really works if you have good protection. In fact, good protection is a must with steam engines, especially if you're running it by itself, because steam will take the path of least resistance. If there's an opening, it'll take it. once it's all closed off, you have so much power at your disposal. And yeah, if you need more power, does it increase? Yeah, so the more pistons you add, the more power the entire system generates. Now, of course, a faster way to make more power is by adding more boilers. So more boilers, burning more material, will thoroughly increase not so much the power output, but the power integrity, or the consistency of the power. If you don't have enough power going through the system, enough pressure going through the system, the engine will eventually just back up and it'll stop working. And at the moment we're holding 3000 RPM. This engine is just going for it. Now, for the amount of power per size anyway, steam engines are probably the best, because this isn't really a compact design, but you can really compact it down. In fact, hang on, I'll give a little bit of demonstration. I'll compact it down completely. There you go. And just like that, we've made a steam engine that is completely compact, and it's making about 3000 power. Is that compact? Is that good? I don't know. Now, downside with steam engines. First of all, they're pretty complex to make, all in all, and in terms of cost, they use a very good amount of resources. If my ship can stop reclaiming material. But let's see. Oh, here we go. So it's making about 3000 steam a second, and it's making 1000 steam per material. So that basically means we're using 3 materials a second. Now that's for each boiler. So all in all, we're using about 9 material a second for this small design. Which isn't fantastic. But yeah, so that's with a small gearbox. Medium gearboxes and large gearboxes, they're basically they are the same, effectively. The only difference with all of these is the fact that large gearboxes, you only have one option of where to put your pistons. So you have a large crankshaft. Oh, that's another thing as well. They are very big. Now, you have serial pistons and parallel pistons. What this means is that, think of it as an electrical circuit. So you have basically your battery, you have your wires, this steam valve here, that is your fuse. These steam tanks, they're your capacitors. And then your gearbox and crankcase, these are your consumers, your light bulb, basically. So, pistons that run in series are kind of like light bulbs that run in series. So, steam goes in one end, and then comes out the other, and then it gets reused by the next piston, and so on and so forth. Parallel pistons, they run any way they want. So you have your input and your output. Your input, see this? So you have your input and you have your output. Input, output. This basically means that these pistons are not reliant on one another to generate steam. This piston here, that's running in series with this one, is relying on the output pressure to be enough to push steam into here. It's completely reliant on the piston behind it. Yeah, I don't use series pistons in general. I only use parallel, mainly because if something happens, like I get hit in the side and a piston gets knocked out, great, just shut down the... it's fine, just use a steam valve and just block off a steam input so that it can't... so that it's not just venting steam out into the atmosphere. Series, you don't really have that option, but it's a closed circuit at all times. But yeah, so that's your power generation. So let's do the same thing that we did with the small steam engine. We'll... that's not how you do it. There you go. So let's do the same thing we did with the small steam engine. Let's build a little system for it, see how much power it's to output in. Now, for these larger systems, it's recommended you use a large boiler system, just because it has the power capacity for it. But you can use any one of it. Any boiler will work, you just need to make sure that it has enough steam generation to work properly. But yes, let's make a small system for it. There you go. And just with that, we have got 36,000 power available. In fact, let's ramp all of these up. Ramping all of that up, this engine is just, it does not care. This single piston is so good. It's doing that. However, problem, it's using about 24.2 materials every single second. And the thing with boilers is that it all takes time to heat up. So let's say that I just chuck the burn rate at 0. Now, it won't make any immediate difference. It'll just keep pushing the cylinder until the pressure just can't sustain it. So as you can see, the pressure's dropping quite rapidly, and now we have the engine power decreasing. And very soon, just nothing. And then if you want to increase more power, burn rate of 100%. Boiler heats up. It's going. Now, when the boiler is building pressure, that's when it's at its most inefficient state. It's just very inefficient using 120 material. You can get around this by using steam tanks, which again are like your capacitors. Steam tanks utilize basically just store steam for you. Now, of course, this does, it is recommended that you, let's see, back pressure. It is recommended that you do put if you do put a system valve, so that basically just means that this system is capable of building engine power for your craft before it starts putting steam into this. And then of course you can build a completely separate line. You can build a completely separate line for your system. Steam valve here. Hang on, give me a second. Here we go. Okay, so with this, we've built a small little circuit so that if we go ahead and so using these automated control blocks or ACBs, we can basically control when this valve opens. So with the ACBs, it's a bit complicated. Basically what it is we select our condition. So basically what happens to make the ACB trigger. So in our instance we want it to be interaction. Other times you might want it to be, I don't know, within a resource zone, or steam RPM, or boiler pressure, material quantity, all that stuff. Speed. speed, what the enemy is doing, what our current target is doing, vehicle stat, how much battery quantity we have, material, all this stuff. So this is our conditions that the ACB will act upon. And then the target, or the action that will take place. In our case, we decided steam valves. So steam valves, select action to take, none, it does nothing. Open valves, closes valves. So what we've got here is under condition. When we interact with it outside of build mode, this ACB will open the valve, and then over here we can decide which valve we want it to open. So this valve here is this valve here. If we increase our effect range to 51 meters, its maximum range, then we can see it has control over all three valves. We don't want it to do that. And then, of course, you have your other ACBs. So current ACB, controlled ACB, slaved ACBs. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Blocks controlled by slaved ACBs. Closest block used for the ACB condition. And closest blocks used for the ACB condition of the slaved ACBs. All we really need to know is that red, this red dot here, is this current ACB. And then these aqua blocks, aqua dots, are the controlled systems. So as we decrease our range to 4 meters, our only controlled steam valve is this one, which we want it to be. And we exit out. So basically what happens is we interact with it, and then it opens this valve right here. So this one does the... So that's that one. So this one does the exact opposite. So when we interact with it, it will affect the steam valve and it will close it within a 4-meter radius. So it only affects this one, which is what we want it to do. Now, as for how these ones are controlled, so these ones have a specific value. So when the back pressure goes below 8 pressure, it will close this valve. This one, when it goes below 9 pressure, will close this valve. And then if we close this one, it basically keeps all the steam in here. So if we go ahead and turn off this boiler, you'll see that it starts dropping. And in fact, what we'll probably do is increase it, that one to 9, so it all closes at the same time. So we're now at 9 pressure. So it will only... So these are all closed. This is all one closed system. So the engine's not turning, but we do still have steam available, not only in the tanks, but in the boiler. This basically means that the boiler is pretty much all ready to go, and if we want to increase pressure, it's just right there, and it's only using 120 material for a short period of time. And then drop down, it'll drop the pressure, all that jazz. It'll close these valves again. Now, when this gets down to 9, it will shut down, and then interacting with this valve uses the steam from here to power the large piston. But we still have the large boiler that still has that's still pressurized. So that basically just makes it so that it's all usable power. Means that if the boiler gets taken out, we're not completely dead in the water. So that's that, really. It's pretty simple once you get down to it. Now, a second way we use all of these types of engines. Battery charge. So the way we utilize the battery charge, should have done this when I had the other petrol engine, but we'll do it with this one. So with this petrol engine, you can choose what percentage of the RPM is allocated to charging batteries. If we want 100% power output to be towards batteries, we just do that. So this basically makes a petrol electric hybrid engine, basically. Means that we can have this engine running at like 0 RPM or near 0. We cannot get it absolutely 0, unfortunately. Change it to 1. Cannot have it running at absolute 0, but we can have it near enough. And then if the batteries need charging, we can use these ACBs. Using these ACBs, where we have battery quantity, right here. So max value, minimum value, all that stuff. So let's go 1000. When it falls into that, we can select power, fuel engines. Set battery charging to 100%. Yeah. So set battery charging to 100%. It does mean that you do have to manually change the maximum RPM. But basically it just means that you can charge the engine at any time you would like. For hybrid engines, I would recommend using steam. So if we go back and get the Odin out. So we go and get the Odin back out. You can see that this craft here has 1,200,000 battery power, and it has 61,000 engine power. Now all that engine power is created by these. So it utilizes this massive boiler here at maximum pressure, and all these medium engine things to charge a bunch of batteries. And it has 2 of these engines all working together. Now the reason I use 2 engines is because I have 2 steam propellers. Another thing with steam power is that if you want to turn them into your main engine, all you really need to do really is just put a large shaft on it. A large shaft and then a propeller. Large shaft and a propeller. Which, yeah, that's all you need. However, if you want it controllable, you need to put a gearbox on it. A transmission on it. And this transmission basically just means that... Why are you not... Oh, it hasn't put it the wrong way. That's another thing. Always put your bloody... attach the steam engine. There we go. So like that. And then do this. And then with pressing U, we can start transferring the energy into a prop shaft. I'm pretty sure this is going to reverse. There we go, thrust direction forward. And basically it's like that. So the Odin uses this system. It uses a medium transmission to then turn a medium 5-meter propeller. The propeller can range in sizes between you have your small 1-meter propeller for the small engines, medium 3 and 5, and then large 5 and 7. Now you can only use the large propeller if you have a large shaft and a large transmission, which means you need a large gearbox. Same for if you want medium propeller shafts, you need a medium gearbox. Small. Oh Jesus, we got a lot. Okay, so let's do a quick roundup. So, large wheel. So this basically acts like a kinetic flywheel. So it takes engine power to spin, but it also resists changes in speed. And with this flywheel, you are able to not do that. Fuck. There we go. And with that, you are able to attach a generator too. And this generator allows charging of batteries. So if we go here, and then... Oh, that's... Bloody hell. Okay, so that's why the material wasn't going down. So there we go. So 55,000 power, and then if we restart the engine, this should start begin putting power back into the electric motor. Here we go. So there we go. So 7,560 power generated. And yeah. So that's how much battery power is being made every second. So if you have a battery, if you have a 10,000 energy battery and it's completely depleted, in 1 second it will basically charge the battery. Of course, 10,000 power isn't a whole lot. This contains what? 1,500. So it's really not a whole lot, but steam engines allow you to make hybrid engines like nothing. Now, other things that you can do with steam engines is turn them into drills, or turn them into weapons. So, the basic principle behind this is that the faster it spins, the more damage the drill head does. And that allows you to completely fuck up a guy's day. All very nice. And then of course you have small drill bits to basically punch a hole through, like, yeah, basically just punch a hole through your enemy. Then you have shaft extensions. So you can penetrate deeper into an enemy. And then, of course, you have your wide drill bits. And these are basically, you can punch a hole into your enemy, and then this larger drill follows up behind it and just tears a hole through your enemy and basically makes it into the next Titanic. All very easy. Other than that, like, you have your large shaft bearing. It's basically just another crankshaft. You have your large axis shifting gear. That basically does what it sounds like it does. You put your input here and then it moves it over to the left or right, depending on which one you selected. To the left or right by one block. This allows you to basically just kind of crab your creation over, to the side a bit. Now, unfortunately with steam engines, you can't completely utilize them to their fullest potential. So if you want to have a ship with, say, 4 propellers, you need to build 4 different engines combinations. Which, if you're wanting the biggest thrusters in them, is a bit of a problem, because these are 7 meters a piece, and you're basically having to build this entire thing just to get 1 propeller. And that's before you add a transmission. So what most people do when they build a vessel like that is, I think I did it with the Hamburg. It takes its time. There we go. What I did with the Hamburg is, build 1 main shaft here. And I'll have all of these, like 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have a 4 engine design to make 1 large propeller move, and then I have a bunch of other tiny propellers. Now, the problem with steam is that to utilize it effectively, you need a big ship, and I mean a big ship. Like, big. It is definitely not something you can build small, but for how big this ship is, the actual engine of it is comparatively tiny. Now, most of this ship is basically just ammo, and guns, but it's also a lot of empty space because of how it floats. Anyway, this isn't about the ship. This is about engines.
Receiving.
All in all, Now, another effective way that I have used steam engines is with crafts like the Retribution. So this is a flying craft.
Listening.
So this is a flying craft, and how I used the engine setup on here is I've used steam turbines. So, hang on, let's see. Have I subject prefab? Load a save prefab. So with this, I have basically made a steam turbine engine. So steam turbines are, all in all, they are effectively your So they're basically steam engines, but instead of having to build an entire steam piston drive to then put a flywheel to then put a generator on, they just use steam boilers with turbines. Now turbines, they're a bit complicated, but easy. So what you have is your connection pipes. You connect these to either side. Oh no, wrong ones. So generators, you connect these to either side, and then you make these however big you want, and then you terminate them. You can just make it that big, for example. So, nice and easy. And then you just hook up your steam, and then these turbine middles will spin and turn this generator, and that generator makes a fair amount of power. So this is a medium turbine. This medium turbine is producing about 3,800 a second. And that's basically both sides of it are making that much battery power every second. So all in all, this craft is making about, let's see, 970,000 energy per minute at a cost of what? 674 material energy per material. So it's creating quite a lot of power. And this just all goes straight into the battery. This is your perfect hybrid system, basically. Is it quite costly in terms of material? Yes. The retribution, that's not it. So the retribution costs about 444,000 materials to build. Now granted, that is all mostly due to the fact that it has pack cannons, other weapons, but a lot of it comes down to its engine choice. Also, it has a supplementary engine. The reason for the supplementary engine is that this craft is very heavy. Is very heavy in terms of energy use.
Listening.
And that's mostly just down to the pack cannons, the fact that for the weight of this vehicle, it is incredibly... really shouldn't be flying. Let's see, weight. There you go, 1,000,000 tons. I'm assuming that's tons anyway. So yeah, so 1,000,000 tons. And this thing is flying. So it is very, very, very energy dependent. And if I didn't have a secondary engine, as I found out the hard way, I would basically, the whole entire craft would just drop out the fucking sky. There is a second variant of this, which leans more heavily into the pack cannon, and that is the Oblivion. Now, the Oblivion, on top of... I'm pretty sure... Nope. So the Oblivion basically removes this gun, basically removes fucking the entire internals, this part here, and just fills it up all with batteries and particle cannons parts. And it has one large particle cannon. So those crafts are very energy hungry. So these steam turbines do really help electric batteries. And then of course you have your steam boilers to make sure that whatever happens, this turbine is able to spin. So if I run out of materials, I still have a fuck ton of steam built up, so I can just keep going until I get more materials. Let's see, what other engines are there? I think. Oh, steam jets. They're they're basically like your regular. Oh, haven't gone over jet engines. So jet engines and ion thrusters and all these stuff. They are what you use in your usual planes. So, and they basically work the same as your water propellers and general air propellers. So as you can see on the Oblivion, I have used jet engines. So jet engines use engine power, ion thrusters use engine power, and then these standalone jets use fuel to power themselves. Now, in terms of actual power output, the jet engines are the best. However, they also use a lot of power. So, for example, this huge ion jet is pretty big. Jet thrust is the same. However, it generates a lot more power, uses a lot more power over the ion thruster. However, jet engines require that the craft is above water and that the craft is not too high up in the air. In from the depths, as you get higher into the sky, the less oxygen there is, and so jet engines cannot burn very efficiently. And then you'll end up just falling back to Earth.
Listening.
Ion thrusters, on the other hand, don't have that issue. Ion thrusters, you can go as high as you want, and they'll never decrease the amount of power. They'll never decrease thrust. As long as they have a constant power input, they'll produce thrust. So this makes them perfect for underwater crafts, spacecrafts, but not so much in aircrafts. So with aircrafts, you also have the other issue of wings. As you go higher into the air, the control surfaces don't act as well because there's not enough air moving over them, and can't control anything. Propellers, they basically work the same as ion thrusters, but you need propeller blades. Now, propellers are good because they work in low to medium orbit, medium altitude. So, yeah, low to medium altitude, and they can also work underwater. So, if this craft basically falls into the water, the propellers can lift the craft up into the air, where the jet engines can then be activated. However, they do have the issue of the higher you go, the less air to push, so you can't go. There's a maximum altitude to these crafts.
Listening.
So I'll see if I can get this.
Control's yours. Moving out.
There you go. So, getting this craft to 4 meters, or 400 meters. There will eventually come a point, here we go, low air density, thrust reduced to 50%. And that's only at 400 meters. That's not very high. And this craft is struggling to keep itself in the air. So it's not very efficient at high altitude. However, low altitude,
Moving out.
say 36 meters, it is perfectly capable of staying up in the air. Now with these custom jet parts, all you really need for them to work is a intake. So I'm going to do a ducted air intake, because this platform isn't actually bolted to the ground. It's it's just sitting there. So if I was to go ahead and move it and put it to the side, it will just go whoosh. Right. So jet combustors. This increases thrust and material use. Compressors increases thrust without material use. However, not enough free room behind. What do you mean, not enough free room behind? Oh, that's another thing as well. Exhaust need to be channeled to combustion chambers. And like that, this is producing 59,000 bits of thrust over these 5,400. So basically I need this times 1,000. So I need 1,000 of these to make the same thrust as this is making every single second. However, it's using 7.2 materials per second, which isn't actually all that bad. If we went ahead and put more combustors on, we make more power, but we also increase the material use per second. Compressors. Compressors increase efficiency, increase thrust without greatly increasing material burn. So you want a decent combination of compressors and combustions, but you have to remember that combustors are the only pieces that can actually generate the thrust. So you always need at least one. So if we built a second one right beside it, and we used a jet controller, and we went all the way up to here, and then put a combustor on it, here we are making 13,000 bits of thrust every second, or nearly 14,000, which isn't great, but we're only using 1.2 material per second. Now, of course, you can increase power by adding extra combustors. These go onto the sides of the craft and increase thrust and increase fuel consumption, and then extra compressors add more thrust and don't really increase the fuel consumption. So if we went ahead, so let's build a third one. This third one is only going to be combustors. What the fuck do you mean not connected? So this one of just combustors. Here we go. Makes 150. Wait, 150? Yeah. 151,000 bits of thrust. However, uses 25 material a second. So with jet engines, it's really a combination of thrust for fuel efficiency. If you want the most amount of power possible, combustors. If you want efficiency, compressors. However, it's usually recommended to have a combination of the two. Now with jet parts, you can also add a jet generator. Now jet generators, literally all they do is just generate power. Like, they take the thrust from the jet and put it into the batteries. So every single type of engine can make power for the electric motors. And with From the Depths, how you make your ship will determine how much engine power you need. If you need a small craft, you'll probably find that electric motors will run fine. It won't be the best, won't be the worst. For everything else though, so like these kinds of crafts, these kinds of flying crafts, it's not really a viable option to use electric motors only. But that's not the point. The point is you use each of these engines to their fullest potential. All of them have advantages and disadvantages. The steam engines, they're the fuel engines. They're cheap to make, but they're not the most powerful. They're not the most powerful. They are very adaptable to your situation, and they can be quite compact. Electric motors, these are probably the best, just by how versatile they are, how many things use electricity, like lasers, particles, plasmas. They all use electric power. But to make them really effective, you need a lot of RTGs to keep them charged, and they're just very expensive off the line. Steam engines, by far the most powerful you can get. For how big they are very powerful engines. Like, just the one piston generated like 36, just one piston, one large piston generated 36,000 power, engine power. However, they also use the most amount of material, so using them isn't really an option on their own. However, when you start mixing and matching engines together, you'll find that a lot of the shortcomings can be just overcome. So, for example, let's take the Odin back out.
Receiving.
So the Odin is capable of utilizing both the steam engines and the electric engines to power itself through the water. However, eventually the electric batteries are going to need using for other things. Like all that. That uses a lot of power, but the steam engines are able to keep it up. They're able to utilize all of this. All of that power available. And still propel itself at 32 meters per second. The Oblivion, over there. That's able to travel at speed
Moving
of
out.
52 meters a second, using its steam engines and these jet engines. Now, of course, when you take a craft out of water, it is naturally going to be a lot faster than its in-water counterpart. But, here we go, almost 60 meters a second, utilizing electric power, steam engines, and steam turbines. And then you have other crafts, like the Halo? How did I make that one? Not the Corvette. Oh, what did I put in the Corvette? Corvette, what did I put in here? Alright, Corvette. I put a petrol engine in it. No electric power available. And petrol alone is able to propel this to about 17 meters a second. 18. There we go, 17 meters a second. That can go 32 meters a second. That can go 66. So steam power is the most powerful. It will get you the fastest. We take back out the Hamburg. Take the Hamburg back out. The maximum speed of this craft is 19 meters a second. And that is really down to the steam engine it has inside of it. The steam engine is powerful. However, that's not to say petrol engines can't be powerful in their own right. Like the Shitface, which is a very old design. I'm just gonna say that out the line. Gonna say that. It is a very old design. Like, this was when I first played the game. And inside of it, it has a bunch of... I'm pretty sure it has a bunch of prefab. Yeah. Has all of these prefab engines in it, all putting exhaust down into the ocean. Its maximum speed is not very fast. Oh.
Receiving.
Yeah. So, here we go. It's saying it's got 3 meters a second of travel. I know for a fact that's not true. Its
Receiving.
real speed is more like 15. Yeah, it's a very slow ship, but that's all with petrol engines. Is it particularly efficient? No. I have redesigned this at one point. Well, on my old computer, I redesigned this with a steam engine, and it gets a lot faster. So when it comes to mega builds, like these two, Steam is your friend. Because with these mega builds, they are never ever going to be cheap. So you really want these to be the best you can get. So I hope this video has given some insight. I know it's a lot of rambling on, but yeah, hopefully you guys can come away from this video with more knowledge about how these engines work, the pros and cons, and then decide for yourselves what options are the best for you. Do you want a cheap engine that will work for the time being? Do you want an expensive engine? Early game, all of these crafts will do something. Well, the Oblivion, Shipface, and the Hamburg aren't very good starting ships. However, the Odin, it's not a very good starting ship either. Like, when I played the game and spawned this in, this basically took the entirety of the peace period, and I still had to wait for this to be completed, and the Deepwater Guard were pretty much about to take my sectors as this one ship became operational. The Enforcers, these are cheaper to build. I built a couple of these before. I built a couple of these before the Deepwater Guard attacked. And yes, most of that comes down to the weapon design choices I made and all that, but the thing is, crafts are only as good as their mobility. You can build the best vessel on the planet, but if you do not give it a good enough engine, you basically just built a floating platform. A invincible floating platform that's not really going to sink, but how good is that when your enemy can just go around you? So, engines are a big part of From the Depths, and learning how to utilize them properly is paramount to success. I hope you find this video informative. I probably explained a lot of things pretty poorly, and I might make an updated video in future when I can actually speak like a normal person. Oh well. I've been Dr. Kamikaze. Thank you for joining me on this TED Talk. I'll see you all on the high seas. Bye-bye.